Hello everyone, and welcome back to another exciting, informative and in-depth webinar from CBI. This time we're focusing on walking tourism, looking at the opportunities within this niche segment and what you can do to create and sell great walking experiences to the European market. For those of you who haven't joined us before, I'm James Turner from Black Spiral Design. I'll be your host and question master today. I've been working in tourism development across the UK, Europe and beyond for nearly 18 years now. And I've participated in as well as helped develop some phenomenal walking experiences, all the way from helping create rambles, exploring the food and landscapes of the British countryside, to going out as a visitor to Circuit Annapurna and Mount Kailash. And I even spent 26 days walking the Camino to Santiago de Compostela. I have to say, walking personally for me is a big draw. I absolutely love the experiences you gain, as well as that slower paced appreciation of your surroundings. So in short, I'm a big fan. I'm quite excited about today's session. And these kinds of experiences are exactly what we're exploring today, alongside our panel of walking experts who we're going to meet shortly. We're going to be looking at the trends in the market, what it takes to make a successful product, and how we can grab our customers' attention. Between us, we've got plenty of ideas, inspiration, and lots of examples to encourage you to think deeper, help us create or perhaps even enhance some truly exceptional walking experiences for our customers. Now, as usual, we're using GoToWebinar. I'd just like to cover a little bit of housekeeping today for those of you who are not familiar with the tool. The important point is that you are in listen-only mode. If you wish to interact with us, you can do, but you have to use the GoToWebinar control panel. If you open that panel, which will look somewhat like this on a desktop, but slightly different on a mobile phone or a tablet. The first thing to say is if you're having audio issues, please try calling in on a phone. There's an option at the top where you can choose to dial in over the phone rather than using the internet. If you click on that, GoToWebinar will take you through setting that up. That call will be toll-free or local tariff at the most. If you would like to ask a question, and we'd really like you to ask questions, please use the questions section. The more questions we have, the more we get a chance to put some difficult questions to our panel. So please ask and please keep asking. We'd love to cover as many of them as we can throughout the session. You'll also see a handouts section. In there is just a small handout that covers a video link that Bertrand is going to share later. So if you want to watch the video that he's talking about, there's a link in there where you can just grab that to find that link. We're going to have a couple of polls during the session. Those will pop up as we're going. Interact with those. Please vote. It's always interesting for us to find out a little bit more about you. And just a reminder to say we are recording this session and we will be providing a copy of it to all of you by email afterwards, along with all the slides, so you don't have to worry about taking notes as we go. Now, Arthur from CBI. Arthur, if you're still with us.
Hi, good morning, James.
Good morning, Arthur. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, Arthur, just like to say a few words just to get us started. So over to you, Arthur.
Okay. Good morning, everyone on this webinar. Particularly also good afternoon to participants that are calling in from Asia. Let me start by thanking all of you for joining us today. I would like to send out a special welcome to the CBI companies that are participating in this webinar. So CBI supports companies in projects in Myanmar, Jordan, Ethiopia, Zambia, and Uganda. Furthermore, I'd like to mention the tourism experts that collaborate with CBI in our market studies and in our export coaching projects. And lastly, a warm welcome to the private and public sector partners that are joining us today. For people that do not know me, my name is Arthur Scheinert, and as program manager, I am responsible for CBI's market research in the tourism sector. Let me shortly, for listeners new to CBI, introduce to you who we are and what we do. So CBI stands for the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We are a Dutch government organization that is funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It is our mission to connect small and medium-sized enterprises like yourself to the European markets and to create sustainable and inclusive economic growth. And the way we do this is by strengthening the sustainability of SMEs in developing countries. So we encourage exports of value-added products to Europe and to the local region where you're based. CBI helps with finding practical solutions to bottlenecks in the tourism value chain. And one such bottleneck is a lack of good market information. And this brings me to the goal of today's session. So today we're going to look at a very interesting market. For me, like James was telling in his introduction, it's also a personal favorite, the niche market of walking tourism. Let me shortly tell you a little bit more about myself. As a tourist, over the last 5 years, some of the trips that I like best were all related to walking tourism. So going a couple of years back, 2015, I took my first walking trip, a 4-day trekking tour from the highlands of Peru to the lowlands of Machu Picchu. That really made me enthusiastic. Next year, 2016, I climbed Mount Tunari in Bolivia. And a few years after that, I went a little bit closer home in already a different specialist niche, long distance walking, doing a 120 miles walk alongside Hadrian's Wall in England. And also looking ahead, on my bucket list are more walking tours. I would love to go to such places as Ethiopia, East Africa, or the Himalayas one day, if possible. And like me, there are many tourists in Europe with the same affection for walking tourism. And more importantly, there are also many tour operators that offer walking tours. So CBI researched this particular topic, and we noticed in a questionnaire that after beach and wildlife tourism, walking tourism is actually the third most offered niche on the European market. Walking tourism is also a growth market. And during the corona pandemic, interest in walking has only grown. So today, together with our expert panel, who will be introduced to you shortly, we will explore the opportunities of this growth market. So why do we do this? Main reason is transfer of knowledge. CBI does a lot of research, and we have many experts working for us in the field who coach tourism companies on a daily basis. And with these webinars, we ask them to share their best tips and practical insights with you. We hope that today's webinar will give you new ideas, inspiration, and ultimately that it will help you improve your products and sales to Europe. I wish you all a very good session. Back to you, James.
Thank you, Arthur. That's a lovely resume of your walking. Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Now, without further ado, let's meet our expert panel. If they're still there, could I invite the panel to come and join me? Firstly, it's always a pleasure to welcome back our resident tourism expert, Alison Berg from Acorn Tourism here in the UK. Alison, could you introduce yourself for everyone and help everyone to get to know you a little bit better?
Morning, James. Great to see you again, and hello to everyone that's joined us. Thank you very much. It's a busy week, I know, in the tourism industry. I'm back in London for WTM is on here, and you know, it's great that we can do the virtual conversations as well as the face-to-face ones. So pleasure to be here with you. So my name is Alison Berg. I'm a director of Acorn Tourism Consulting, and we work in developing countries. We work in the UK and Europe, working with destinations to help them to develop their tourism sector. Like James and Arthur, I'm also a keen walker. Can't claim to be quite as hardcore as Arthur, but I do get up every morning at 6 o'clock, and the first thing I do is try and go for a 4 or 5K walk to clear my head, think about the day, and hopefully get a bit of fresh air before I spend the rest of the time sitting in front of a laptop. I've been involved in developing walking tourism products really over the last 10 to 15 years. Very early on, in about 2005, we developed walking, cycling itineraries in the UK, very much tapping into that sustainability demand. And you know, really from there, we've gone on to develop a lot of other walking products. And as you can hear already, it's a really key market in Europe. So I'll talk to you about that a bit more in a moment. Thanks, James.
Thank you, Alison.
Hello, James.
Love to hear.
I'm losing you.
Hear me now?
Yep.
I don't know what happened there. My audio just disappeared. Apologies for that. We're also very privileged today to be joined by Bertrand Carrier, who's a tour guide with Amarok Esprit Nature and a veteran of a number of CBI programs coaching businesses in developing countries. Good morning, Bertrand, and welcome. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, James. Thank you. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. Hiking is walking is part of my life for a long time. I started to walk when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, living by the mountains and being brought by my parents whenever possible, hiking here and there. And it's true that it became more than my passion, it became my work. I started to be a trekking guide when I came back from 2 years in Africa, working as a co-parent for the French society, whatever. And and then I started to be a tour operator, working as a product manager in the Sahara region, North Africa, Middle East, for a few years, organizing all the trips, the trekking and the walking tours for a French tour operator called Atalante at the time. And then I just kept going on as a passion. I was guiding the tours, building them up, producing the tours, and today I'm still just enjoying this passion. After, as you just mentioned, James, being part of the CBI projects for some years as one of the expert coach, supporting some of tour operators in Madagascar, Mongolia, to develop not just on the walking tours, but other activities as well. I started at the same time my own company called Amarok, l'Esprit Nature. And this company, I will talk a little bit more about it after, but it's all about walking in nature, but also taking time to observe it, taking time to do photographies of the wildlife and the nature around us. And of course, walking is part of it. So yeah, I will mention a bit more about it further on later.
Okay, we'll look forward to it, Bertrand. Thank you very much. I'm also delighted, and I hope he's here because we were having technical problems earlier. I'm also delighted to welcome Johannes Soeder. Ah, Johannes, you are there.
Hi, James. Can you hear me?
Yes, sort of.
Good. Sort of. Okay. I hope it's going to go better during this webinar. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Johannes Soeder. I'm from Akwaba Afrika, which is a German-based tour operator. Yeah, my history with walking, maybe not that long, but I can tell you where it began, mostly in my study days, when I was doing backpacking a lot. And, you know, when you're backpacking, you're going on public transport, you might know that it doesn't always arrive on time, or, you know, you sometimes have to just go to the next village to catch a bus or something. And what sounds like an odyssey and more like a pain actually developed into something that I really appreciated, because when you're walking and when you're kind of like waiting and being slow on your journey, you see so much more, and that was fascinating me. I got into contact with more people. I really saw my environment with just different eyes than when you see it from the car. So when I co-founded Akwaba Afrika as a tour operator that was aimed at sustainable travel, we knew from the beginning, you know, walking should be a big part of it, not only from the sustainability approach, but also from the side that we want to provide our clients with the most in-depth experience possible. And we found walking is always a good vehicle for that. So yeah, this is our connection to walking. I'm also co-founder of Tanzanian Rebels, which is I would say the first self-driving DMC. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't heard about anybody else so far. But so we do self-drives, which is not, you know, really walking, you could say. But the thing is, what we found with self-driving tours is that our clients were more and more aimed at also stopping at places and going around. Walking was not only about being on the road all the time, but being more flexible and using your time the way you want it. And we found out that in most of the itineraries, walking activities, being it like one day on Kilimanjaro or like a village tour or so many other things, really incorporate into that. And so ironically, our self-driving actually became more and more about walking as well. So being with this both backgrounds, being an outbound tour operator and a DMC, I think, I might be able to see also the whole walking tourism from both ends of the table. So I'm hoping I can give you good insight in our market.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Johannes. Bertrand, Alison, could you come back and join us just for a second, if you wouldn't mind? Just before we start, I was just hoping I could ask each of you, just very quickly, just tell me, what's the most memorable moment you've ever had on a walking tour? Alison, can I come to you first?
Well, yeah, I guess one of the very memorable moments I had walking was a long time ago, quite a long time ago, when I still thought I was quite fit and active, and we were doing a sort of hike. I was doing a hike with my now husband up in the lower part of the Himalayas, and we were walking up to what was supposed to be a pilgrimage site, which we thought would take us about a day. Well, by the time it got sort of late afternoon, it was getting quite dark. We realized that we really weren't going to get up to where we were, the sort of hut that we were supposed to be staying in, and dusk was coming, getting a bit worried, and very luckily we met a local guy who was marching up the hill beside us and invited us to come and stay with his 3 mothers who were in the house around the corner. So basically he had his father had 3 wives, and they all lived together in a very simple wooden house, and gave us a feast of what was clearly sort of their store of food. So it was, that in itself was a remarkable experience. So early in the morning we set off, and this guy decided he'd come up with us, and by about sort of early afternoon we're getting close to the top. But during that walk the next morning, the village passed us. The whole village was coming up for a pilgrimage up to the lake. They clearly set off that morning, and by lunchtime they were all up there, and by about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon we eventually turned up. So yeah, it was a great experience in local hospitality and local fitness, which clearly completely outshone our ability.
Fantastic. Sounds somewhat epic. Bertrand, what about you? What about the most memorable moment you've had on a walking tour?
Yeah, difficult to choose from.
Well,
no, but one of the most experience I had was basically coming down from Kilimanjaro, and we went to the top with a group I was leading. This is like about 20 years ago, and so of course, unfortunately, shall I say, not all the group came to the top. And it was about half of the group. Some already stopped like 1 day before, 2 days before. And we're going down with maybe 5 so it was a group of 12 people. And we're going down, and suddenly we see this doctor who was traveling with us coming up. And the guide who was with him was telling us, like, we have to go down, we have to go down. I mean, he is not good. But basically, I'm like, oh, how are you? And what's happening? And it's like, oh, did you see the camels? It's just beautiful. I'm like, yeah, okay. I think we really have to go down quickly because you're having a big mounting problem here. And I mean, it was just so funny because at the same time, he was completely smiling, and he had no idea where he was. Basically, he found out the next day when we were in the plane, like, oh, what are we doing here? And I mean, and everyone of the group was just like so happy, and this guy just didn't even mention or didn't realize that he was on the top of Kilimanjaro. It's his target.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that story ended well. Johannes, would you care to offer something?
Just off the top of my head, I think most memorable would be we were hiking in the Tai National Park in Cote d'Ivoire. This is close to the Liberian border. We were looking for chimpanzees because they have an habituation project there with the World Chimpanzee Foundation. It's quite new project. So it's very rough. It's not very touristy. There's no passes. There's no real good accommodations. So we took this walk into the rainforest, and we're basically sleeping in this ranger camp on the mattresses. And the next day we heard the chimpanzees, like drumming on the roots, because apparently they do this to attract each other for food sources. So the whole morning we were trying to follow up on their noises, but we couldn't find them. And we were just sweating all like hell. I could really get the water out of my t-shirt. And I think we walked until early afternoon, and we only heard noises the whole time, but we never see a single chimpanzee. But in the end, And also, funny thing, I felt so rewarded. Like I didn't even care about the chimps anymore at some point, because just the surrounding, you know, you saw some little insects, some little birds. I mean, during the day in the rainforest, animals are very hard to spot. But
Sure.
I was so happy when I saw just a little tiny hint of an animal, and there was so much to see in the end. So I totally forgot about the chimps. And in the end, I think that was a really happy day for me, because I realized like I don't have to go for this highlight, let's say, to have a good time. And yeah, I had a really great day there.
All right, fantastic. And I think, to be honest, that may well encapsulate the wonder of walking tourism. It's not, whilst the highlights can be amazing, sometimes it's about the journey as well, which is very profound. Right, thank you, everybody. Well, I hope that's got everyone kind of geared up for today's session. So let's begin by just looking at the bigger picture. Alison, could I ask you to lead us through some of the key points relating to the market and the opportunities for walking tourism? You may be muted, Alison.
Lovely. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, everything is looking perfect.
Great. Thanks very much, James. Really just to add what I was saying earlier about what we do, as well as being a director of Acorn Tourism, I'm also one of the CBI's experts and market researchers. So part of that process, we talk with ARTIA and CBI about which reports we're going to write each year. And we decided to write a report on walking tourism because we felt it was very relevant for small tour operators and DMCs in developing countries and emerging markets in the post-COVID period, as you know, as the market begins to open up. It's a type of product that can be developed as relatively low investment and really taps into that growing market and demand for outdoor holidays and so that really drove our motivation for doing the research for this earlier in the year. And walking tours can be very much categorized as part of adventure tourism. It's a specialist niche. It taps very much into that large, valuable, soft adventure market, although there are also specialist walking niches such as trekking and snowshoeing that can be categorized as hard adventure. And a good way to understand the market is to look at websites of European tour operators that specialize in walking tours. I mean, we often talk about doing market research, and I think people you know, think that that's got to be very expensive. People have got to do surveys and, you know, and are a bit confused about how you can do it. But a very easy way to start is to look at some of the best tour companies that are out there and really try and analyze their websites and understand, you know, what it is, the message they're trying to get across to their clients. So this is a company called Walks Worldwide. It's based in the UK. It is probably the largest specialist walking tour operator in the UK, which is also one of the biggest walking markets. And if you look at how they brand themselves, Walks Worldwide, Travel, Experience, Conserve, it tells you already a lot about the company and how the company understands that its clients are looking for walking holidays that give them a memorable experience and want to feel that their walking holiday is going to conserve the natural environment. So they're not just selling the walks, they're selling that whole experience and the sort of value that holiday can bring. And if you search on their holiday types, if you search on the website, you'll find a section on holiday types. And that again gives you a very good insight into the different types of holidays that can be organized. And you know, they sort of describe their holidays as saying that they offer group and self-guided walking and trekking holidays to suit a wide variety of interests, from culinary, natural history, and culturally focused trips to hiking along the world's classic routes, scenic coastlines, or donning snowshoes to explore the landscapes. And you can see that they've categorized their holidays into different ways that they organize them. So they're offering guided groups, but they're also offering private guided groups or self-guided. So 3 different ways that they organize their trips. They also organise them based in one place, so a centre-based holiday where you go back to the same centre each day, or as point-to-point holidays, walking from one place to the next. And they're also picking up on specialist interests. So that might be culinary walks or cultural discovery or nature walks. So there's a whole range of different types of holidays that they're organising. And in addition to the type of holiday, they're also giving their potential clients a way to find a holiday that suits their level of fitness and interest. So it could be an easy walk, moderately challenging, demanding, or very strenuous. So it gives you, an insight into their types of clients. And again here, just going back to the holiday types page, you can see that they've got these 12 different types of walks displayed very clearly on their homepage. And by looking at a tour operator, a specialist tour operator like this, you can find out not only about the interests and requirements of the people in the UK that they're trying to target and what they want from their walking holidays, but you can also learn what it is that a company like this needs from their local suppliers. So if you're interested in supplying a company like this, you can see what it is that you need to deliver in order to give them the confidence that you can create a holiday that's going to meet the needs and expectations of their clients. But as well as looking at the specialist walking tour operators, it's also really worth looking at tour operators that specialize in the type of niche activities that you already offer. So for example, if you're a wildlife or safari specialist, have a look at what those European tour operators are offering in the way of walking activities, and it will give you an idea of the types of buyers that might be interested in what you can offer. And you can do that very, very easily on the internet. And I think Johannes is going to talk to us later a lot more about that and how they have built walking into their specialist wildlife holidays. In terms of the different types of walkers that you can get, you've got obviously serious committed walkers. These are people that are taking want to walk as the prime motivation for their holiday. That's their sole activity that they're going to do, and they want to have a holiday that's built around that. They tend to book longer itineraries, longer walking itineraries. They're looking for multi-day tours, challenging walking trails or well-known walking trails, which they can spend all of their holiday doing. And whatever type of holiday they choose, one of the key factors about this niche of the market is that they're looking for high quality products. They expect a good service and they want a very well organized walking holiday. Healthy walkers are walking primarily because they want to improve their health. So it's much more around a sort of well-being holiday, and they're looking for healthy food, and they want to do other things apart from walk, but their prime focus is to protect their health or to improve it. And to understand what these particular clients need, you need to really communicate with them so that you can offer them a level of walking experience that's going to fit their individual needs. The biggest segment of the market are the casual walkers, and they are very much part of the soft adventure market. Walking is going to be one of several motivations for taking the holiday. They might walk for half a day or 2 days as part of their trip, depending on how long that is. They tend to have a preference for easy or moderate walks, and they want to use walking as a way to explore the destination, as well as experiencing the local culture. It's a great way to meet local people, to be out in nature. So you've got to think about which type of walker you're going to be focusing your walks and your products on. And so why invest in walking tourism? Often people think that it's not a great business opportunity. Everyone goes walking, how can you really develop a tour and a business model around this? But walking trails, are a really key motivation for a holiday. They very much drive visits. If you've got a good walking trail that's well promoted, it's going to encourage people to that area and drive local expenditure. I mean, on average, if you've got a well-marked trail, you know, and you can draw people in, you can generate about 13 times the amount of investment you have to a destination. So for every $1 that's invested, you can expect around a $13 return. But as well as the economic value, walking is a great way to develop cross-cultural understanding. People can meet and chat to local people much more easily. They can get involved in local activities, but it also gets people to really appreciate the nature, the landscape, and the heritage, and have a much greater investment in wanting to conserve and protect these beautiful natural environments that they walk in. So why target Europe? You know, they're big markets, they're big outbound markets, and they are the markets that really drive a lot of the trips to lesser known destinations and emerging destinations. You know, the big five, you often hear about them, but they're UK, Germany, Netherlands, France, Spain. Italy is also very important. They're all big walking markets, and they're all big adventure markets. So in terms of tapping it into that sort of adventure market, you know, these are the key markets to really focus activities on. There are definitely growth markets, and if you look at Eastern Europe, you'll find that there are growing walking markets there as well, but they won't be necessarily on the same scale as some of these big Western European markets. And you know, these are also the markets that are ready to travel. They've got high vaccination rates, and there's a real pent-up demand to get out there. So that combination of adventure tourists that have been vaccinated, you know, are really the sort of core target markets that you want to be looking for at this stage. So just a quick run through of some of the sort of key things that you find in these top markets. I mean, Europe is the largest, so UK is the largest adventure travel market in Europe. It has roughly 19% of the global adventure travelers, and 87% of tour operators in the UK are active in at least one adventure travel niche. So that really gives you an indication of how important UK is in the adventure travel market. And a very high proportion of tour operators are selling walking holidays abroad, are based in the UK. So some of those specialist companies like Walks Worldwide, they're based in the UK. Obviously their focus is the UK market, but they're selling a lot through their website. So they're picking up clients from a lot of different markets as well, not just from England and Scotland to the UK. So walking, and they're selling walking tours as in combination with other things, with culture, wildlife, art, culinary experiences. So, you know, again, you're not just focusing on the specialist walking tour operators. You want to think about what other niches there are that are out there that fits well with your existing set of itineraries. And walking is the UK's most popular leisure activity, particularly for the over 50s. People are very keen to explore a destination by foot. They use it as a way to unwind, to reconnect with nature. But they also use it as a way to have good companionship. They walk with their friends. They want to be able to chat, meet new people if they're in a group, and they want more accommodation. And that often ranks just as high as the experience. The German market, Johannes is going to talk to you about in much more detail very soon. But it is, you know, the second biggest market after the UK in terms of the adventure market. Walking is very important. It's very popular. There are lots of walking clubs, and particularly doing mountain walking in large groups. Again, the market's largely driven by the over 50s, and women are very keen walkers. They're also the people that usually purchase holidays or research holidays, so it's worth bearing in mind when you're planning a holiday. Hiking, unspoilt nature are a priority. Walking with sticks, Nordic walking in German markets, and wanting to see a lot of information. So the Germans want to learn a lot about what they're going to do a lot of research. That's very important to ensure that the website is informative. If it can be in German, that's great, although Google Translate these days enables people to translate to English quite often very easily from those websites. And the Germans are very loyal customers. Again, I think Johannes will talk about that, but once you've managed to get them to buy some of your products, they'll be keen to stay with you if you offer a good product. In the Netherlands, walking is a popular leisure activity. You know, we've already heard from Arthur how important it is to him. You know, we've heard from the whole panel that walking is, you know, a key element of what they do. And in the Netherlands, people love nature. It's considered to be about 25% of Dutch market, consider it to be the most important reason for having a holiday. More than 50% of people call themselves outdoor people. They love walking, cycling, and they're looking for multiple day thematic routes that are going to involve all of those different activities. France is, say, another popular, walking is a really popular activity in France. There's a growing younger market, particularly post-COVID, which again is a trend you're seeing across Europe. Again, women are very keen walkers in France, and people enjoy exploring destinations by foot. They also like exploring destinations by themselves, so self-guided tours might be more appropriate in that market, but you know, rather than big walking groups for walking holidays. In Spain, the adventure market's very important. Walking's very popular, and cultural experiences are even more important than natural environment. So you want to think about that in terms of how you're building up your walking itineraries. And again, they're keen hikers. So if you want to find out more about these different European markets, a really good place to start is in the associations with both European and the national walking associations. Put the links up here. We'll be circulating the PowerPoint afterwards so that you can pick up on those, but you can also find out more about these associations in the two reports that are on the website, and I think Arthur will talk you through a little bit more about where to find those on the websites at the end of the webinar. So thanks very much. I hope that's given you a good overview of the market.
Thank you, Alison. And I should just apologise to everyone about the background noise. Sorry about that, just having some technical issues there. We will try and you will get all the slides so you can read all of the stuff that Alison was discussing there. And yes, apologies for that. Okay, so thank you, Alison, for a helpful overview of the subject, and that's some food for thought already. I would like to ask a question of you all who are here, just so we can understand how you fit into the walking tourism space. Basically, we just want to know what kind of walking tourism products you sell. So I'm going to put a quick poll up. We're just interested to know whether you sell guided walking for independent travellers. Do you sell guided walking for groups? Do you sell self-guided walking? Are you currently developing some walking products but don't have any at the moment? And do you not know? I'm just going to pop this poll up now. That poll should be open. You should be seeing it on your screens. Please do vote. Yep, that's really good. We've got some interesting figures coming through. As I said, the options there. Do you sell guided walk for individuals, for groups? Do you do self-guided walks? You don't have any at the moment, you're currently developing some and you're unsure. Okay, I'm just going to leave that for a second and I think we'll close it now. Okay, let's look at those results. Well, as you can see, there's a really good mix there. Clearly, guided walks for groups are more important, but there is a good proportion of you, well, 20% nearly, who are offering self-guided products, which is really interesting because that's something that that I think Bertrand certainly is going to talk about today. So it's nice for us to understand the areas you guys are working in. So thank you very much for that. Let me close that down. Okay, so now I'd just like to remind you, please do post questions as we go along. For Alison, Bertrand or Johannes, we will be pausing after the next speaker to answer as many of those as possible. So, please post. The more tricky ones we have, the better we like it. So let's get specific now. I'd like to invite another of our panelists, Bertrand Carrier. Bertrand, are you there?
Yes.
Excellent, Bertrand. I'd like you to join me and just as we start to look at how we develop a fantastic walking experience. So Bertrand, as someone who lives and breathes this subject quite literally, what does walking tourism look like in 2020 and 2021? What are the trends and the opportunities we should be considering as we develop our products?
So, sorry, I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Bertrand.
So yeah, first of all, of course, I think it's very interesting. Sorry to hear about what Alison just told us, and I will probably mention some few things or remind some few things around that. What is important, I think, and what I would like to talk today about, will come back on the self-guided tour, of course. But it's the main trends that we could see as a French tour operator, but also as a consultant working in different other countries. I think it's very important to see that it's also common to other countries. Post-COVID, post-2020, I've been working with a project in Madagascar over the last 3 months, training local organization, DMCs, hotels, and so on, and give them some topics on product development post-COVID. We are still in this COVID situation today. Of course, we are being quite optimistic, but we're not completely in a normal situation again. But for sure, what is important is that those who are ready to travel are in a big need of reassurance. After this period of complete stop of traveling for most of them, stop of activities, of socializing, there is a need to of course go back to travel, but making sure that it is safe to travel. And at the same time, people are aware that there is also this climate change effects that will increase probability of new crisis. So this is to keep in mind over the next, I think, few months or few years. I don't know. There is an uncertainty, of course, of when it's going to come back to normal. What you need to think about is the risk factors. I'm not going to talk in details about those risk factors. I just listed them here. But when you build up your products, when you develop new programs, and when you're targeting a new niche market, you have to think about those different risk factors. Climate crisis, we talk a lot about right now. The health crisis, of course. The energy crisis is a big topic, but you have to think about it when you develop your programs, because, well, what kind of way of transportation will we use, and so on, etc. Geopolitical, technological, very important, and new demographic insights. It's still very uncertain, as I said, when the situation will come back to normal, if it does come back to normal. And this is what you have to think about. Is it going to be like it was? Do we want it to be like it was? You really have to look into that. There is no proper answer today. We just see that there is some trends going on, and that things will change. But how big will it change? We don't really know. But this permanent need of reassurance concerning health conditions when traveling is important. As Alison just said, at the same time, after this COVID time we just went through, there is a real increase in need for nature, open space, physical activities. And on top of it, people have been not traveling so much, so they kept money. They haven't been spending it. So there is now opportunities for spending more in the coming month. But what about walking tourist trends? That's important. Yeah, I was interested to see this quote that you've put about around 20% for self-guided walking tours. This is a real trend. Amarok, the company I co-founded, we only offer guided tours, and for us, it's our strategy, it's our niche market. We will not change from that. It's in nature, wildlife, photography, and observation tours, and the added value of the guide is more than important for us. But still, we have a lot of requests for self-guided walking tours because it's a real trend. And why? Well, there's more and more people who wants to walk by themselves, solo, or being independent from a group, from a guide. They want to go by their own rhythm. It could be a way of meditation as well, because when you're part of a group, well, it's a little bit more difficult, and walking can be this kind of movement mood that you can meditate in. Well, with the COVID also, what we could see is that people don't want necessarily to join groups anymore. Why? Well, they might be a little bit afraid of being in a vehicle with someone else who might have COVID or another sickness, and so on and so on. So that's really important. Of course, in the walking business, it's not a mass tourism sector. We know that, but still, they want to get away from the mass, and the walking, of course, in nature is perfect for that, because they're not going to be in cities, they're not going to be in buses and things like that, for the exception probably of transports. But anyway, that's the idea. Another reason is the big improvement in internet technology access, and today basically everyone can access through their smartphone different apps, maps, road books, photos, but also all kind of information regarding the destination they want to travel to. It will never replace a guide who has a lot of stories, who is a storyteller. It's still going to be just information based on your screen. But it's possible today, and it's much easier to go by your own. The only thing you're looking at is having maybe a company or tour operator who will organize all the logistics around the tour. And that's your opportunity. If you're not working in that at the moment, it's a new opportunity as a new market, because you can offer more service bookings, such as accommodation, such as transport. We talk a lot also about equipment rental, but also about, if you see this photo, this is a family traveling with donkeys. Well, you can also, if you have such animals carrying luggage, but also people like camels, like horses, like yaks, that's an opportunity for further business. You can, on top of your guided tours that you organize, you can offer this service. It's also interesting because it brings better relation between you and your partners, in the sense that you will have maybe more bookings, because they are, I mentioned about that in the slide, it's more economic, of course. So it might be more opportunities for you to make bookings with your different partners, such as accommodations and things like that. Interesting also, it gives new opportunities for your guides or your product manager, depends who will be doing it, to build up programs, because very often self-guided tours also goes a little bit with tailor-made tours, and it's on demand. So you will have some quotes, and you have to build up those programs, and then once the client has confirmed their booking, you can send them the proper road books, the maps, and all the information that they need to do the trek or the walking tour by themselves. Another trend which I feel very important is that people are looking for more comfort, and post-COVID, I think it's already happening right now, it's that they will probably want to travel less often, but longer. Alison was mentioning about different kind of walking programs, such as few days, a longer itinerary, but walking with comfort goes with usually more day backpack trips. It's like you're based at one place and you go for one day, another day you go somewhere else, and the third day you go somewhere else. And then maybe you move accommodation and you go to a second place and you do the same thing. But you are in a comfortable cabin or mountain hut or hotel or mountain station or any way where you can, maybe instead of having a dormitory, you can have a single or a double room whenever possible, and preferably private bathroom and showers, because that's so much nicer. We're talking about nice food, and that's a reality. People want to experience good food, local food, but good food, good quality food, healthy food, especially in the walking industry. So here again, there are some opportunities for you. You have to adapt your walking offer today to this new trend, because if you have that as a target, you can offer different things, and this is new opportunities for you. You will have to adjust your walking programs to fit that new demand. If today you are doing mainly 1 or 2 weeks hiking, well, you will have to find a way to offer different things, because your 1 or 2 weeks walking is probably also camping, and camping is not that fun anymore. It is still for some a part of the sector, of course, no doubt, but they are looking at different things today. Example is sailing boat trips. That works very well today. So it could be comfortable sailing boats, but it could also be local sailing boats, in which you have different cabins. Some of the cabins for two people might have private showers. That's a plus, a bonus. But basically the idea is that, yeah, it's like a boat hopping. You stop in different places and you walk during the day, and that's quite fun. And you have your base camp in the boat, so that's an idea. Same thing with comfort, is about bag transfer. People don't want to carry so much anymore. Having a bag of like 5 kilo is different than having, a day bag of 5 kilo is different from having a few days backpack, which is like 15 kilo. So transfer is important. It could be by vehicle, but also, as I said before, by horse, camels, or donkeys, for example. And then you have many different services to offer when it comes to comfort, like body care, like spa, etc. So think about that. I was mentioning about traveling less but longer. It is reality today, basically, with everything going on. There is a flight shame mode now. And people are more sensitive about environmental questions. So they want to reduce their carbon footprint. And tour operators, airline companies are playing on that right now. But you have to really show what you can do on that level. And traveling less but longer is one of the options. It's also more efficient in terms of travel cost, because most of the time the flight itself, the plane is a big component of your tour price. Well, if you stay longer, then it reduces it. It gives also opportunity to experience longer trails or several hikes in the same trip, and not just do a small one or have to come back. So it's people wants to go and experience more of a country instead of coming back several times. With IT, it's also the possibility to mix pleasure and work. People can bring the computer, have their smartphone with them, and come and have some time working and some other time walking, or mixing both. And that's one big opportunity for you. So work and walking travel. You've probably heard about the nomad travelers. Well, they are a lot around, and they like to be on the spot, work a little bit, but also enjoy their time being there. And walking is definitely a big market for that. We also talk about mini expatriation. A lot of people are willing to go like 3 months or 6 months in a destination, enjoy, work a little bit, go walking in one area, etc., etc. So think about that as well. It's a good market for you. You can combine walking itinerary and static experience. When I mention about static experience, it's like you will be, for example, in a community and spend some time there, or you can be in a small area and experience another activity, such as doing a yoga retreat, for example, after hiking. But you also can mix it. And senior have time and budgets. Think about that. So that's a good market for you. They're still very active. Now, another important trend is also that the travel makes more sense. That's what we are changing a lot in our product development right now. People wants to travel not just as a spectator, but also wants to be an actor, preferably, or that their travel makes sense for them, but also for the people around them, the people that they will visit, the planet, of course, and nature and wildlife. But it's not just about sharing, it's also about learning. So there are new opportunities, such as discovering traditional way of working. We see on the photo here, there's a herder. We have a lot of people who wants to walk with them for a few days and experience that thing together. That could be an example. The support the local communities. I will not talk too much about that because I think Johannes will mention about that. But basically, it's while you are walking, you come in a community and spend some time with them and can share their way of life, but also support them by different ways. Learn how to live in nature, not talking about survival, but just back to nature, how to make a fire, to make a camp, maybe smoke your fish, things like that. Super interesting, and people love that. Practice well-being activities. We've mentioned this is a big market, of course. Well, while people are walking, they can also do, as we mentioned before, Nordic hiking. They can do yoga during their break and then walk and keep going on. And this is a big market that we are working on right now. Enjoy art and craft session. People are going in the mountain, going in the deserts, going in nature and having some breaks while they can start painting or drawing and things like that. It makes sense for them, they like it. But also be part of conservation programs. That's very important. We can talk about eco-voluntary tours. The idea is as you are traveling, you become part of market research. For example, helping to preserve and conserve specific species. So we have some few tours that we are now building up on that, which are interesting. I will come back on it just after. And finally, people are looking at learning, and we have decided to, after COVID, during COVID, should I say, organize some specific trainings on nature topics, both for professionals and for individuals. So this is what we have been doing during those 2 years. We have like 3 main aspects to adapt to such new trends that we have looked after or we have understood. So this local and regional development, we talk about low carbon movement like walking, biking, canoeing, which are part of our tours to go somewhere to observe and photograph wildlife and nature. Experience with nature, so how to live with it or in it, nature immersion, and the well-being. So these doesn't need to be far, it can be around you, and that's really interesting. This learning offer specific to our nature segment, as I mentioned, for professional and for individual. As example, someone who wants to know more about the wolf, or someone who wants to know more about the bear can have a specific training on that topic. People wants to know more about geological aspects of the earth. We have specific topic around that, etc., etc. But people are traveling then with a sense. They are learning at the same time. And finally, become an actor, and I will finish on that. with this eco-volunteer program. We have a partnership with an NGO called OSC, Objectif Science Internationale. It's a French-Swiss organization who offers a lot of eco-volunteer tour, where people come as a small group on specific countries such as Kyrgyzstan. You will have a link, as James mentioned, to see a video visit, which is in French, but gives a bit of an idea of what is eco-volunteer tour. But basically, the idea is to go on a specific spot and, for example, catch some wildlife and put either a GPS on them or things like that. So we are helping with that. It could also go and get some places where they have photo hides that have been there for like 1 month, pick them up and get that on top for the database information on the movements, the habits, the behavior of the wildlife, and it's helping the science. So that's a little bit the idea. You will see I just put those 2 or 3 slides, which are about some few examples of eco-volunteer tour operators and NGO, and some international and local nature preservation and conservation organization that you could maybe support, work with, etc. But there's so many more in your different countries that you might be aware of. And that's the link if you want to see this small video. And that's about it, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertrand. Wow, fantastic. That's lots of food for thought there. Brilliant. Okay, let me just grab that. Great. Okay, fantastic. Could I invite the rest of the panel to join me again so we can take some questions that we've got in the questions section from the audience? Alison, Johannes, could I ask you to come and join us? Otherwise, Bertrand's going to have to answer all of the questions. I'm sure he won't mind. Okay, so we've had some really interesting questions come in, actually. One of them, I think, might even be one of the best questions we've ever had. So, Raneen, well done. It's a fantastic question. Bertrand, this one's for you. What do you recommend for self-guided walking tourism in underdeveloped countries where tourists are not comfortable walking alone, but still prefer the self-guided model? Any thoughts?
Sorry, I've misunderstood you.
Okay, so self-guided tours.
Yeah.
Have you got any recommendations for how you might run those tours in countries where people may not be comfortable walking alone, but still like the idea of the self-guided model?
Yeah, so the idea behind it is basically you are here to support them. They will maybe walk more or less alone, but you can also offer, like, first of all, they will have a road book explaining everything about the direction they have to take, where to go, where to stay, where to sleep. So they don't have to worry about that. So that's all taken care of. It's exactly like having a guided tour, but without a guide. Now, if some people really feels uncomfortable about that, there's ways around. So you could have like a person, not a guide, but someone who will be walking with them or supporting them and maybe being just like the cook. And then they might not be traveling alone. That could be an idea if it's really a problem.
Sure. Yeah. Johannes, you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Not really much. I think Bertrand said it quite well. Yeah, nothing to add there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. Moving on. We've got a question for someone that's come in who said, most of the walking tourists that they see don't seem to buy local products, or don't seem to buy too many things in the local area, obviously because they are walking and potentially carrying what they have with them. Is there any tips we can provide to ensure that people are buying local crafts, local products and things like that on the tours that they're undertaking?
Is that to me?
Yeah, if you'd like, yes.
Okay. I do not really share that experience so much, but I think one reason could be on multi-day tours, when people are trekking, from place to place. Of course, they're already carrying their backpacks, you know, with their water, with their lunches and everything. So people feel a bit maybe hesitant on loading more stuff onto themselves. So I think one thing could be here is to offer them good logistical support, that they feel free to, you know, buy whatever they want, and also to actively encourage people to just interact with locals, because sometimes I see our clients being a little bit hesitant, a little bit shy, because they don't know how to approach people. They don't know how, you know, the customs are about, you know, trading, if I'm bartering, you know, if I'm like negotiating about prices or not. So in these cases, I think the walking guide or whoever is with them can, create some of the bridges towards local population. And I think this kind of like cultural ambassador function of the guide really comes in here handy. And I think, yeah, it's really down to logistics and communication with the clients, because I don't think that clients do not want to engage with locals or do not want to buy local products. So I think they're just hesitant and need to get this hesitation off their backs.
Yeah, no, I think I'd probably echo that. I mean, you see this in lots of places. People, it's a new environment for them. They don't know quite what to expect. They don't understand local customs or whatever it happens to be. And it's just a situation they're unfamiliar with. So their natural reaction is, as you say, to be hesitant. So great communication, providing the opportunity for people to buy things and have it transported later on. They're all ways that can start to encourage people to buy locally, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's also about encouraging the communities to understand that people that are walking or people that are traveling generally can't carry big pieces of craft. You know, they need to be able to produce the things that are easy to transport, that aren't going to add to people's luggage generally, and, you know, think about creating the right type of souvenirs, crafts, whatever it is that tourists can easily buy, and then facilitating people to buy it in the right place. So if they're walking, maybe, you know, you could get some of the community to come at the end of the tour and, you know, present themselves at that point when people are ready to buy. So again, it's, you know, looking at what's most convenient for tourists and facilitating that.
Sure.
And I would add to that. I completely agree that, for example, those tours which are like walking and crafting, or walking and designing, art and craft, that could be also a good opportunity, because you could build up a project in which the participants are building their own craft, making it themselves, and at the same time they could buy something on top of it, and there might be some opportunities there to think about.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. All right. What else have we got? How can we make our walking products stand out if there are lots of other people and lots of other locally doing similar things? How can you compete if you are, you know, if you're already in a market that is kind of saturated with guides and different companies offering walking tours? How can you make yourself stand out? Any tips we can give to people? Alison, perhaps?
I can speak for the
Johannes?
German market. I mean, Alison was referring to it earlier, and I'm coming back to it later. German agents and German clients need a lot of information. They need to know what they're getting into themselves. It's kind of like for a sense of security, but also a sense of, am I really getting the right touristic product for myself? You know, is this tour really what I want? So I think, yeah, when you're doing something that a lot of other people are doing, and maybe you're doing it on the same or even better level, but it's very hard for people outside to see, work on the communication aspects. Really try to make people understand what you're doing, because most of the times we face local tour operators that might have a great product, but are not able to communicate really what their specialty, what their benefits are. So most people end up communicating like, you know, just their general itinerary, which I would find, you know, in many other places with many other companies, but they don't make me understand what they are about. So I think working on the communication aspect and really going into detail when explaining things to your clients, I think this could really change that for you, so people would trust you more. And in the end, tourism is, I would say, at least 50% trust. If not, you know, 80 or 90, I don't know. So for German clients at least, the more information you get them, the more they will be able to trust you and are more likely to book with you.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
think you also have to remember that people buy people. You know, if you've already decided you're going to walk in a certain country, you're going to walk in a certain destination, you then get a choice of different types of walking holidays, then you're looking for somebody you can engage with, you know, and if you can tell your story, I mean, just as Johannes said, you want to give the detail of what you're offering, but if you can do that in a way that really, you know, is your story, is your personal story, shows your expertise, you know, if you've got a real passion for something, if you've got a real passion for particular types of plants, for example, or that you can interpret things as people are walking, or you've got, you know, a knowledge of geology, or you've got knowledge of the communities, then, you know, what your story is yourself, you know, about who you are, and put that across as a real personal story, then, you know, I think you can shine with your own knowledge and personality.
Yes, definitely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, as you said, people buy people. You know, if you're putting yourself out there, you're saying the right things, you've got the right information, you know, you can have that personal edge that can make you stand out. You know, it's all about having the right things to say and being able to say them to your customers. Okay, I'm going to do one or two more, and then we're going to have to move on. Someone's asked, I think, going back to local products, someone's asked, should we be looking at arranging or recommending offering or arranging shipping services if people want to purchase larger items while doing it? Should we be doing that as part of a, you know, a tour operator package? Should that be a service that we look at providing for our customers?
Why not? But it's another business.
Yeah, sure, it's another business, but, you know, is it, you know, is there a competitive edge in doing that, I suppose, is what is the question.
I think you need to be sure
Exactly.
that it can be it's reliable, first of all. I think you need to look into that business model. I think it's a great idea. You know, if people want to buy things and you can help them ship them back, then they're likely to buy more, you know, particularly if they've engaged with communities and they want to buy a sculpture or a piece of artwork of some sort.
Sure.
But like all services, and particularly that, you've got to be absolutely sure that it's going to turn up, you know, at their home reasonably soon, and you need to really understand that market and, you know, the shipping market and what that
Sure.
service involves and what the costs are going to be.
Okay, good
And
stuff.
customs and so on.
Yeah, of course. Finally, one last one. Someone's asked, could we advise how can we get local communities interested in, let's say, the conservation aspects of perhaps the eco-volunteering stuff that you were talking about, Bertrand? Because obviously, you know, we can arrange the tours, we can bring the customers. Have we got any tips to actually engage the local communities in that kind of work and being part of that package, I suppose?
Well, I mean, what happens with eco-voluntary, for example, is basically what happens is that there's some needs for preservation, and very often the local communities are involved in it because it's in their interest. First of all, there has been, I didn't mention about those examples, but the reason for such project is usually because there's a species which is mainly at risk, and very often it's at risk for some reason and linked to this local communities which are living from it, for example, or things like that. And the tourism is very often used as a good example of practices in terms of conservation and preservation, because the local communities will have an interest from it. They're going to accommodate people, they're going to have some local guides being involved in the project, there are going to be some exchange with them, they're going to be involved on the longer term. So it's quite easily explainable for the communities, and it should be organized like that. They need to be involved in the project completely.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. Anything else
I think
other guys would like to add?
Well, I just think that's the basic principle of working with, you know, developing a tourism product. It's got to be something that's there already. You know, you don't want to be going into a community and trying to encourage them to do something that they're not, you know, not naturally doing, they're not doing already, just because you think it might be something that your tourist, you know, wants. You've really got to understand what's going on within communities, and then you may be able to see how you can adapt what they're doing that could bring them an income by engaging tourists that want to come. But the principle is you've really got to know your product, I think, first, and then build on that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I would agree. Okay, well, we do have a load more questions, but we're going to have to pause that there because Johannes is going to have to do some presenting at some point in the next few minutes. So we will come back to those. I do apologise, everyone, if we haven't got to yours yet. We will do our best to get to them as soon as we can. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Just before we move on, I would like to just put up another poll. We would just like to find out from you all what the main route is for you that you use for selling your walking tourism products. Do you sell them directly through your own website? Do you use a domestic tour operator, so in your country, that sells to other, that you sell tours to them and they sell that to the customers? Do you use an international tour operator? Is your main route working through an OTA, or don't you know? I'm just going to launch that poll now. Hopefully everyone should be able to see that. Please do vote. Very interested. It's very helpful for us to kind of understand how you market and how you sell things, particularly the walking tourism products. So do you sell it directly? Are you using a domestic tour operator within your country, an international partner? Do you work mainly with an OTA, or don't you know? Okay, just going to leave that open for a second or two. I don't think those totals are going to change massively because that's fairly stark. Okay. So as you can see there, pretty much most of you guys are selling your products either directly or using an international tour operator. It's very interesting stuff for us to know. It's not potentially surprising, but I am surprised that many of you aren't using an OTA, but very useful to know anyway. Okay, let's move on very slightly. Speaking of which, I'm very excited to introduce Johannes. You kind of met him already, but here he is for those of you who haven't. Johannes, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, great. Okay, Johannes, can you give us an insight into the opportunities specifically for the German market? And I'd love some thoughts from you on how to create and sell products that really appeal to them. I'm just going to pass you this screen. Oh, hang on, I need to close the poll results. That'll be why.
All right.
Schoolboy error. So, Johannes, yes. Can you share your screen?
Can you see my
yes.
screen now?
Yes, I can. It looks perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So yes, thank you again for having me. So I'm just starting very shortly with reintroducing myself, not myself personally, but the companies I'm working for. So this one is Akwaba Afrika, Germany-based outbound tour operator. So we're working in 26 destinations in Africa. So quite a variety on the continent, and we're specialists on FIT tailor-made tours. And much of that is really special interest. We, of course, also focus on sustainable travel. Not only on ecological points of view, sometimes I feel like sustainability always gets reduced to ecological subjects, but also on economical and social sides, because we believe those three go together. And also on the example of walking tourism, it's quite becomes quite obvious, because when we do, for example, community walks, we don't only have the benefits of less carbon emissions, of less resource and energy consumption, but we also have a bigger impact on local economy most of the time, as people buy stuff locally, being it food, being it souvenirs, being it smaller services. And on the social aspect, I would say walking tourism comes in as sustainable as well, because the walking itself reduces a lot of the boundaries that are between people. So it's a good vehicle for people to communicate with each other, for people to understand each other, and also raise awareness for social topics. And the other company is Tanzanian Rebels. Introduced it earlier. It's self-drive DMC in Tanzania, based in Moshi. We also won the Golden City Gate Award at the ITB 2019. That's a marketing award for our marketing video called Nyumbani, or Home. You can check it on YouTube if you like. So with this, we already got experiences in how to communicate with our partners in Germany, which for Akwaba are our competitors, but for Tanzanian Rebels, they are our partners. And so just one quick move to walking, the popularity of walking in Germany. You can see on this small image that there's certain types of active travel options, and walking by far is the most popular for different reasons, because you can see horse riding, surfing, diving. These are all with skill-based activities. They all have higher requirements. Walking, you could say, basically is for everyone, so it comes in handy in any kind of itinerary. Actually, I can't think of any itinerary that doesn't work with walking. So, and as you can see, in Germany, almost 50% of people prefer walking as part of their itinerary as an active choice. So I'm not going too much into these things because I think Bertrand and Alison already talked a lot about it, but I want to stress the engagement of local population and businesses in walking tourism, because that's mainly what we are doing. Most of our tours, which are cultural or nature-based, do come with walking aspects. And what we do many times is that we go to villages or from village to village, and just to experience also local life, everyday life, and get into contact with local population. As we see, when people are driving most of the time, they are in this kind of like box on wheels with a glass in between them and their environment. So it automatically creates a border. As soon as people are walking and basically doing what most people do around them, these barriers, they kind of dwindle, and when the guide comes in between and also helps creating connections between tourists and population, there's very fast, we can see an engagement between people. There is some bonding happening, and also, as I said earlier, local businesses are also benefiting from it. And I'm not only talking about crafts, because of course that could be something that people are not likely to buy on every corner on their way, but I'm also talking about little shops like grocery stores, like people buying SIM cards, or people buying local services. And we're talking about workshops, like for example in Ghana we do drumming workshops or batik workshops, which goes hand in hand with the crafting aspect. So when we do walking tours, most of the time we try to mix it with other activities. So it's not only the walk, but walking is basically the vehicle to get to a very certain and very special experience, which is very close to the local environment as in the local population. And it's easy to implement. Like, as I said, in any itinerary which is nature or culture based, you could try to reduce the vehicle aspect and go more and more into walking activities, even if they're only half day or full day. When thinking about walking tourism, we should not always think about multiple day hikes. It's more the half and full day activities that are easy to combine into those itineraries. And Bertrand was already talking about a bit the trends in tourism. I think when I look at Germany, what is very interesting is to see with COVID that this trend towards under-tourism grows even stronger. I mean, over-tourism, just think about if I think about Venice, for example, or Zanzibar in July and August, if you talk about over-tourism, everybody's going there. It's nothing really special as an experience anymore, and also the engagement with the local population, for example, has become more like a business, because as there's an overexposure to tourists, and that means that it's all very economic business driven. So the experience for the tourists and also for the population is not so genuine anymore. People realize that, so they're going more into this form of under-tourism, meaning people want to travel where nobody travels. Even if it's not a highlight destination, even if it's not the best view or the most photographed motive in the country, people are looking more for the genuine experience that they can talk about when they are home, something they feel is unique to them and not necessarily only the highlight that everybody has seen. And of course, the trend also Bertrand mentioned is slow travel, that people are tending to stay longer in their destinations and rather travel less per year. So these trends are mainly influenced by, as I said, the over-tourism we had in the years before COVID-19 hit. Then we had COVID-19 as well, where people are more hesitant to travel in larger groups or go to places that are already crowded. So people are looking more and more for the destinations off the beaten track. And I could tell this even happened in Germany while we were in the midst or in the climax of the COVID pandemic, which I hope is over now. But when we had lockdowns and travel restrictions and all that, people even in Germany, they traveled more and more to places they've never been in their lives, that didn't have that much touristic exposure before COVID. So this trend of under-tourism is not only a global trend, it also was shown domestically. And of course, climate change and the growing climate awareness is a big trend. So what helps these destinations that are off the beaten track to get more recognition, to go into the focus of those tourists, is mainly through what we see, social media and general media exposure, just basically the development of information technology, as in people are traveling everywhere with their cell phones, they're sending pictures home, they're going on the Instagram and posting highlights. And so things that do not show up in general news or do not have high exposure in classic media as newspapers, as TV and everything, they are heavily benefiting from new IT developments on social media. So this is also fueling the trend of people going into places that are rather seen as untouristic. And of course, one big trend is the traveling experience as construction of the self, because we're not only traveling to see things and
Johannes, sorry, we've lost your webcam. I think we may have lost where you are with your slides as well. We're still looking at a slide of advantages of walking tourism.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's not a problem. These things happen.
So should I reconnect, or what would be the best troubleshooting then?
I'm not sure. Can you not start your webcam? No?
I think it's on, and even... Oh, wait, hold on.
Sorry, apologies, everyone.
I don't know what happened here.
No?
Can you see me now?
Hold on a second. No, I'm afraid we can't. Okay. No problems. Keep talking.
What about the screen? What about the screen?
We're looking at the advantages of walking tourism.
That is very weird.
Okay. All right. Well, look, keep talking. I'm going to bring up a copy of your slides, and you're just going to have to say next slide to me as we go.
Thank you, James. Sorry, guys, for the inconvenience. So, as I said, travel is also construction of the self, meaning that people create their self-image and image of themselves towards others around also their experience and also around their travel. So people don't want to be where everybody went, and people don't want to do what everybody did. They want to be unique and special in their own right, and also want to show it to the world. So this is also fueling the trend of doing some activities that are beyond what we do, or going to places that people normally don't go. So all these influences fueling the trend of going to destinations off the beaten track, and also using different types of travel and of activities while on the tour. And so there's a question of, okay, how do I attract German clients and German agents, or if you're doing direct marketing, how do I reach German clients? So one thing which is, of course, in the beginning, is do your market research. Get to know who's who in the tour operator scene in Germany, and who does what actually. So there we have over 3,000 tour operators in Germany, and I think, for example, in my field, we are Africa tour operator. I think there's more than 200 tour operators, outbound tour operators that work with African destinations. So find out who would be relevant for you before you contacting people with generic emails marketing yourself, because I can't tell you how many mails I get from tour operators, PMCs in the various destinations, rather generically approaching us and basically only saying, yeah, we are the best safari or cultural tour company in the country, but I don't understand really what you do, who you are. So this refers to what I said earlier. Please also, when you approach agents and clients, be detailed about who you are and what you do, what special is about your tour, and how agents could benefit from working with you. And also find out who is really your clientele in the country. We see our clientele at Akwaba Afrika is on average around 50 to 55 years old, is being very active, and is also going more and more into social media marketing. So it's also about, where do I find my clients when I do direct marketing and not going through an outbound tour operator. And highlight the added value that you can create for the agents that you're working with, but also highlight the value that non-touristic stakeholders have from your work. Because people are getting more and more aware of social aspects, of environmental aspects, and a lot of the clients that book through us are actually very, very focused on their tour having a positive impact, not only on the company they're working with or they're booking through, but also on the places and the people they visit and they encounter on the way. So it is always valuable if you can show your clients what added value your tour or your itinerary brings to non-touristic stakeholders. And as I said, put your itineraries as detailed as possible. Germans are almost obsessed with getting the most information in advance of their tour. It is about safety, but it is also about getting value for money. Germans are very keen on value for money itineraries. We don't have that big of a luxury sector in tourism, and also not that much of budget tours. Most of the time, we really... Can you still hear me?
Johannes? Are you there?
Can you still hear me?
No, I can't. No, I don't think so, no.
It said I was disconnected from the...
No, you're still connected. We can still hear you. Please carry on. Just let me know when you want me to change the slides.
Okay, sorry. I'm on the site, how do you attract the agent that suits you?
Yes, that's good. We're there.
Okay. So I said, like, yeah, obviously I'm speaking for the German market. So, yeah, do provide detailed itineraries, as much information as possible, and also educate your partners. Don't rely on your agent already knowing your destinations very well, knowing your products. So the more information, the more education you can give to the partners you're working with, the better they are able to market your itineraries and communicate those. And it's, of course, more work in communication. It's more work in maybe getting even the documentation for those itineraries right. But it's worth the while, because we as tour operators in Germany can only sell as good as the information is that we get from our partners. And also, this comes into it, is try to produce content. And with content, I mean not only nice pictures, but also produce information, stories about your tours, your itineraries. Show basically the whole picture about it. Because with the content you produce, you can help your agents marketing. You can help generally your destination, your product to be to get a higher level of awareness. And you can also use this content in marketing yourself directly. People only buy what they know, and most of the time now, what they know is consumed through the internet, through social media, through blogs, or of course still classical media. But the easiest way, I would always say, is produce content and distribute it via your social media channels, via your agent, to get people more aware of your products. And with that is also the media exposure of classical media is very important. So when you have the capabilities, being it financially or logistically, try to create more media exposure for your products. With Tanzanian Rebels, every year we do journalist trips to get the word out in Germany and Europe about self-driving in Tanzania. One reason for that is we're pioneering in that sector, because it is a product that not many people know it's even possible to do self-driving tours in Tanzania. And I'm pretty sure you also have some products that most people still don't know about, that have a very little, very small level of awareness, of public awareness. So the best thing, from my point of view, is to create additional media exposure. Because again, the outbound tour operators in your specific market, being in Germany, UK, or France, or any other country, they can only sell the products that people also have heard about, that people also know. If I'm providing certain itineraries to my clients, let's say I'm having 5 different itineraries, and one of the itineraries is something that people already have connection because they saw a documentary, they saw like a newspaper article, so it's much more likely for them to book this tour rather than tours they've never heard about. So try to also support your agents with the media exposure. So what is generally special about German tourism agents? Alison was mentioning it earlier a bit. We are actually also third worldwide in outbound tourist numbers. I think only China and the US are bigger markets, but because also they have higher population. So Germany is globally speaking still number third in outbound tourist numbers. And one thing that is very special for Germans is that they have on average 30 days of vacation per year. So that, I think, is number one in Europe in terms of length of vacation. So Germans have a lot of vacation, and they use their vacation also a lot for traveling. In the past, the trend was more to have shorter shorter holidays and more different tours in a year. So the trend is reversing to going to longer itineraries and only 1 or 2 travels per year. So it comes in really handy. So don't be shy on offering itineraries that are not only your 7-8 day itineraries, but that go 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Because quite frankly, Germans have the time. The only thing that is really important to have an eye on when you're creating longer itineraries, that the focus is still on value for money. That means just because people have longer holidays doesn't mean they have also more money to spend than others. For example, if you compare it with clients from Australia or from the US, they spend much more money per day on smaller itineraries, on smaller vacations. Germans spend less per day, but travel longer. So they're looking for this efficient packages. I think Germans are known for efficiency. So they're also looking for efficiency in the tour packages. So when you create itineraries that are going 2 weeks to 3 weeks, have an eye on keeping the costs low in order to appeal to German tourists. And I said it earlier already, the focus is very high on safety. We've got a lot of questions now with Corona. What is the situation in the country? What are the measures? But also not only health-wise, people's concerns are also about how is the general safety and according to COVID changes in the country. So people suspect, there might be a growing crime rate, or there might be, some areas will not being safe anymore because, economic downfall due to COVID could have happened. So there needs to be a lot of information on safety aspects, a lot of information on what happens day to day, and how you provide this safety for your clients. So always mention safety aspects in your itineraries or in your offers as well. German tourists are also generally long-term planning. That means, now Corona changed things a bit, so even we see now a lot of short-term bookings recently. We can't really tell for certain if that is, a temporary trend or if this is becoming the new normal, as we used to say now. Generally, traditionally, Germans are long-term planners, meaning that they are already starting to plan their tours for summer and fall next year. So also try to provide rates, try to provide programs also long in advance, so people have this security, this peace of mind when they're planning. They already know what the cost is going to be. They already know what's going to happen next year. And of course, there's a growing level of eco-awareness, especially in Germany. So we, as you might know, we had our elections just recently. The Green Party is becoming part of the government, and so environmental topics are a point of discussion basically everywhere now in society. And of course, this also extends to tourism. So people are aware of ecology aspects, so they also want to know how eco-friendly your tour is, what you do to create your tour as sustainable as possible. I'm not saying that everybody is keen on that, but people that are generally looking into walking tourism and to active travel are much more aware of those topics. So try to provide insights into that as well. And one thing that comes in handy for everybody who is doing walking tours and is looking now to the German market, walking, recreational walking, hiking has a very long tradition. Germans do this basically on a regular. It's quite a popular pastime activity on the weekends to go on longer hikes with the family or with your partner, even in the close vicinity. People drive on weekend getaways inside Germany for hikes, and they're also doing this a lot in European destinations and increasingly also in non-European destinations. So you're meeting already a market that is that walking and hiking has a long tradition and is very popular. So you do not have to focus so much on creating excitement for walking in general, rather creating excitement for the side aspects of these tours. So what people can see, what people can witness, who they are going to meet. Focus on, as I said, the added value of the tour. It's not only about walking, hiking, and the scenery. It's more about the experience. It's more about the exposure to local population, local life, and really experience the place where people are. So far, so good. So there are some certain examples from what we're doing as a company. For example, in Ghana, we're working with eco tours. We do a lot of village and farm tours where people just take the whole day, have a guided village tour, talking to shop owners, talking to people that working in a fufu restaurant, or just local cocoa farmers, see how they do, how their daily life is, and also taste some of the products they're having. So there's a lot of things we put into these walks where the walk actually becomes only the mode of transport and enables people to get this close to local life. Of course, we do classical tours like the Kilimanjaro trekking, which we work with a K-PAP certified tour operator called Shah Tours in Moshi. Just K-PAP, so it's called the Kilimanjaro Porters Assistance Project, is basically a local certificate that guarantees that the operators that are working under the K-PAP logo guarantee certain minimum standards in terms of work safety, health assistance for their porters, minimum pay, at least 3 meals a day, which I believe should be the norm, but unfortunately it isn't. So if you're also thinking about doing treks, multi-day treks, see also if you can create tours that are not only eco-friendly but also fair to the people involved, to porters, to guides, and if possible get that certified so people know that it's like you're not only talking the talk but you're also walking the walk when it comes to sustainability. Another exciting project we're working with is the Mambo Viewpoint Eco Lodge in the Usambara Mountains in Tanzania, where we do themed community walks. People visit local doctors, local schools, some of the shops, and the Sunday markets, and just mix into local population. The beautiful thing about it is a very untouristic area, so people are not so much used to tourists that they show a genuine interest still in them, and it's very easy for people to interact with each other. And it's always beautiful. It's very raw touristic experience. There is not much infrastructure being built there. Even the Mambo Viewpoint Eco Lodge is quite simplistic, so you always have to find the clients that are right for this. So, which I was saying earlier, do your market research. Who are your clients? What are they looking into? Not every walking itinerary is fit for every walking client, especially in terms of comfort and in terms of thematic walks. And so there are other examples in the media.
Sorry, Johannes, can I butt in? So we're rapidly running out of time. Could you give us one last example that would be really useful for everyone, because we've got lots of questions we need to ask.
So since you don't see my screen, so another example would just be in Morocco. We do Atlas trekkings where we're not necessarily only go up to the mountains, but we visit further villages and see local population go into certain aspects of day-to-day life that the Berbers face in Morocco. Also trying to create an insight on what the situation of people is, not only their day-to-day life, but also how their situation in the country, how their lives in general is, to create a bigger understanding for the destination itself and not only for the countryside. And I'm sorry that you can't see my screen because there's some nice picture examples here as well. But so this is it for me for now.
All right, thank you, Johannes. Yes, apologies, everybody. Yeah, we're running out of time, and I'm sorry to cut Johannes short there, but unfortunately, we do have some other things we've got to get to. Mostly, we'd like to answer some more of your questions, and Arthur needs to give you all the all-important links from CBI before we finish today. So, if I could invite all of the panel to join me, let's get to some of those questions. If you guys are still here, okay. Johannes, are you still there? No, Johannes has disappeared completely. Okay, brilliant. Okay, Bertrand or Alison, either of you, we've had a question asking, is there a certain type of insurance that European tour operators ask that DMCs provide for walking tours? Is there any guidance we can give people on the kinds of insurance they would need to hold to be able to run these kind of products?
Well, if I look at the French market, at least, we are asking more and more to have a liability insurance locally. And I know it's not always possible, but this is the most important aspect. We need to be sure that the DMC we are working with can handle one way or the other one this question of liability insurance. Sometimes they cannot access that locally, but there is now some insurance covering that on an international level, which they could access to. Of course, it's quite expensive usually, but I think there is some information about that on CBI website.
Okay, yeah. Alison, do you have anything to add to that? I believe there's some stuff about this in the report that people can access on the CBI website as well.
Well, there's a report on buyer requirements, and I think that's the report for people to look at. It goes into a lot more detail about the different types of insurance that you need for different types of products. So, I think when Arthur's pointing to the reports, he'll show people where to find all the different reports and, look for one on buyer requirements. Okay.
All right, good stuff. Somebody else has asked, how can we calculate and how can we perhaps document or convey well, they've suggested the carbon positiveness, so I'm guessing the sustainability of a walking tour. How's the best way for us to communicate sustainability to our customers? How can we tell people just how little impact we're having? Any suggestions?
Well, that's one of the difficult parts. Today, there is a group of French tour operators who are trying to have a kind of common calculation, and most of them are trekking or walking tour operators, but not only. It's one of those aspects where basically, and I think when we come back to labels such as Travel Life or other sustainable labels, it is a little bit part of it. It's not about calculation of CO2 impact, but it's how to reduce our footprint and showing some good common examples, practices. I think it's more about that than having a proper calculation, which doesn't really exist. There's nothing today that has a real sense to everyone, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Alison, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, I think, looking at trying to calculate the carbon is very difficult, but maybe looking at each element of the tour and really highlighting, where the positives are on that, in terms of the transportation you're using, and in terms of the impact that you're having to the communities. I mean, Johannes talked earlier about the need to really show people what benefit you're bringing to the local community, and highlighting the details of how you operate the tour. So how you may be handing out water bottles, but are you actually providing water that's not in plastic bottles to fill it up with. You know, there are little things that you can do about how you operate that and highlight those in your descriptions and of your tours. And then really just keeping an eye on the market, see what carbon calculators are around, and you know whether any of them are relevant to your tours. But there's nothing at the moment that can measure those, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with what you both said. I mean, at the end of the day, it's very hard to put a very solid number and saying, you know, we are this sustainable and we've offset this much carbon. There's also the point that potentially, you know, does that really resonate with your customer? Is your customer going to be more interested, as Alison said, about where you're sourcing the products that you're providing them from? You know, are they going to be more interested about the stuff that impacts on them very specifically? And there's probably a message about the sustainability of your actions in there that may be as important as having a kind of a big number on kind of carbon offsetting as well. Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, very briefly, but I mean, you know, bearing in mind that we're talking about international travelers on the whole, you know, they're already feeling guilty about taking their flight if these things interest them. Therefore, you know, they're wanting to feel that they can do something positive, and you know, wherever you can highlight that, that's going to engage them and interest them.
Okay, cool. One last question, because I've been told we have to finish up. We have to finish up very soon, unfortunately. I would just like, someone's asked, what's the experience of how do we go about arranging a fair benefit between tour operators and local communities in terms of a kind of a walking product? Because these local communities can potentially be a very big part of, you know, that product. They can be the people who are providing somewhat of the experience. They're the kind of the, you know, they are the interest story. How can we ensure a fair benefit between tour operators and them?
Well, if I look at what we try to do, the idea basically is that as much as possible, we try to prepare the tours in advance, which means that we have some discussions with the local communities we are staying at or we are working with to know more or less what they need and how they live, and yeah, the level of life that they can encounter over there. And then basically we try to discuss together how we could be more beneficial for them, and how the tour, when I say we, how the tour can be organized so it really has benefits on the different people living in the community, not just one family or not just one guide. I think that's one of the idea, but probably Johannes can add on that as well.
Johannes, thank you for coming back. I promise I didn't cut you off.
Sorry, guys.
That was technical issue. Sorry, just very quickly, as we have to finish soon, can you just give us any ideas about how we can ensure a fair benefit between the tour operator who's running the walking product and the local communities that are potentially hosting it?
Can you repeat the beginning of the question?
Can you give us some ideas about how we can ensure a fair benefit that's shared between the tour operator that is organising the walking tour and perhaps the local communities that may be being part of that or are involved in that?
I think what is very important is to, before you're starting any tours, any itineraries, to really get into touch with the local communities and see what they really want. If they are eager to welcome tourists, you know, what they want to show, what they want to offer, how they want to participate. Because if you're just coming with your own ideas and or just, you know, loading people into a certain village and, you know, just let them loose, it's very hard for anybody to benefit, and you know, the situation or the attitude towards tourists will go rather into a negative. And also, what you have to find out who's benefiting. Like, you have to find a way to fairly distribute the income that comes from tourists into the community. So it needs to be very open. People need to know what's going on. That, you know, that you're not creating a situation where people starting to distrust each other or, you know, getting jealous of each other for being able to financially benefit or not. And also, you have to talk to people that do not want to participate with tourism, that do not want to be exposed, and to find a way how to avoid exposure for these people. So there needs to be a lot of talking, and there needs to be everybody in the community involved beforehand. Otherwise, you're just creating something that will cause problems in the long run.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. Thank you for coming back, Johannes, and thank you for giving us some insight on that one. I'm apologise, it's all got a bit rushed, and I apologise for all the technical difficulties, but that's all we have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I would just like to wrap things up, which means I need to invite Arthur from CBI. Arthur, are you there?
Hi, James. Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Arthur, how you doing? I'm just going to hand you the screen. And Arthur, if you could give us the more important links and just tell us what to do next.
Sure, I'll try to keep it brief. Before we all head back for lunch, I think we've almost reached the end of this webinar. I'm putting on screen the link to CBI, the CBI website, www.cbi.eu tourism. I definitely recommend that you visit it after this webinar or whenever you have the time. You will see that we have over 40 studies that are about the sector information, studies about tips, and studies about specific tourism niches. I want to give you a quick glance of this on the web. So I'm sharing now the CBI website. I hope everybody can see it. If not, shout out. So at the website, you see here the tourism website. I will just give you a couple of interesting examples. Johannes was mentioning in his presentation, Germany is the biggest market of the world. It's actually the third biggest world market and the biggest market in Europe. If you're interested in that, you could, for example, look at the study about what is the demand. And then if you look at which European markets offer most opportunities, you will see more information about Germany and, for example, where German tourists are heading. That's one example I wanted to share with you. Alison was speaking about insurance and about the bio requirements, which is also a sector study, which is called What Requirements Should Your Product Comply With? You find it over there. I believe also in Johannes' presentation, he was mentioning the importance of content production and distribution and storytelling. And I think as almost a last example, it's very interesting to know that we have lots of webinars, and in particular, it's good to know that we already did a webinar on content production and also a webinar on storytelling. So please go there and look at these. And last but not least, of course, the topic of today's walking tourism. We have studies on niche markets. Here you'll find the study about walking tourism. If you have any questions after today's webinar, you can always reach us and ask your question via the questions button. And that's about what I wanted to share with you. Back to you, James. And thank you all for attending. And also thanks to our panel, Alison, Bertrand, and Johannes, for your great presentations. Okay, have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Arthur. That's fantastic. Again, I would just like to say a big thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Alison. Thank you to Bertrand, and a big thank you to Johannes. And we got through the technical difficulties, but well done. We soldiered through. Thank you once again to Arthur and the team at CBI for allowing these webinars to happen. A reminder that we are going to send the recording of today's session, for what use that may be, and also all the slides. So you have all of the slides, all of the links that everyone has talked about, so you can see all of the detail that perhaps may have got missed in some of the issues we had today. Please don't forget to check out those reports that Arthur shared at the CBI website. There's a huge wealth of information there that I think would probably answer some of the questions we didn't get a chance to get to today. Finally, there's going to be a very quick survey when we finish this session, so please do give us some feedback. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for attending and participating. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. It's been a bit of a roller coaster today, but we got there in the end. Have an amazing day, everyone, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Bye.
Thanks, James.
Bye, everyone.